With Easter and this season of new beginnings, if you're pregnant, you might be thinking, I just want to feel prepared. I don't want to freak out if things don't go as planned. You're not alone. That's exactly why I created My Essential Birth. Right now through April 7th, you can get $100 off, just $197, plus my belly mapping guide and breastfeeding supply guide, helping get your baby in the right position for birth and giving you everything you need to make sure you're feeding baby properly postpartum. This is literally the step-by-step plan that's helped thousands of moms go from unsure to calm, confident, and empowered. Head to myessentialbirth.com/get started and join today.
I want that moms are in their power and that they can grow and feed their baby as they want to. And if placenta can help, then I'm happy. But I'm not a big pharma company that wants to sell any product. I'm not doing big press campaigns for this. I'm just looking at mothers, and I collected field reports from mothers who consumed their placenta. And I was so happy reading that they had this remedy helping them through the really exhausted first year. And this what makes me happy. And also this is what drives my research.
Getting pregnant and giving birth are two of the most exciting things you can ever hope to experience in this life. The moment you think you could be pregnant, you're frantically searching for all the best information, which is why you're here today. I'm Stephanie King, and with my many years of experience as a professional childbirth educator, doula, and lover of all things pregnancy, birth, and postpartum, I'm here to make preparing for your birth enjoyable, empowering, and totally easy. Each week, I'll cover different topics, interview professionals, and get into the nitty-gritty birth stories from mamas just like you. And when you're ready for more, you can join me in the My Essential Birth course at myessentialbirth.com, where I take you step by step through exactly how to prepare your mind, body, spirit, and partner for a birth you love. So let's get started. You guys, I can't wait for you to hear today's episode. I have the special privilege of interviewing Dr. Sophia Johnson. She is a physician and a researcher specializing in integrative women's health, and she's the author of Placenta Power, which is a fascinating look at the science of the placenta, and that's what we're going to dive into today. So with that, Dr. Sophia, will you say hello to everybody, introduce yourself a little bit, and I'd love to hear kind of how you got started in the work that you're doing.
Yeah, thank you very much. And also thank you very much for the invitation. And sorry for my German accent.
I love your German accent.
Please ask me if you don't understand anything. Sometimes I'm missing the right words. But yeah, I'm a medical doctor, and I studied medicine at a university where it was possible to get also insights from integrative medicine concepts such as Chinese medicine or anthroposophical medicine. So I had a broader understanding of medicine, like from the beginning. And I started doing research on placenta remedies after I gave birth to my first daughter, because my husband, he asked me if I want to consume my placenta. And I was a little bit shocked, but more interested. And so this is how I started the research in placenta remedies. And this was a work I was doing for about 10 years at the Placenta Lab at Jena University. And now I'm still doing research, but more in the field of integrative medicine. So I'm focusing on women's health and gender-specific diseases or situations or symptoms that I want to treat with integrative medicine, such as acupuncture, herbal therapy, homeopathy, or other integrative medical therapies.
Okay, will you talk about the lab for a moment? So they have an entire lab at your university dedicated to placentas?
So yes, there is a university hospital in Jena, which is the city nearby, and they have a pretty unique placenta lab. So when I was doing my doctoral thesis, I was on call for placenta birth to take samples for my research. And this is pretty special because the placenta lab is located in the obstetric department of the university hospital.
Oh my gosh, that's really neat. So this is, and you've been able to do a lot of study and testing and kind of research at that location, right?
Yeah, so you have the obstetric ward and then you have the placenta lab. And this is where you take samples, where I um, dehydrated the tissue, for example. And then if you need further examination of the tissue, for example, for microbiology, then you send the samples off to the next lab. But yeah, you have a great infrastructure for research. And there I spent my time during my doctoral thesis and then also a postdoc phases where we did a clinical study on group B strep. Yeah. And like 1 year ago, I kind of finished my work at the university hospital and changed to another university, which is more focused on integrative medicine, but still I am fascinated by placentas and also this topic of placentophagy.
Yeah, it's fun. Like here in the United States, this is a big topic, right? We've now been eating our placentas for the last decade or a little bit more, where it's become kind of the popular thing to do. I remember like it happened while I was having my children. So my youngest or my oldest he just turned 17. So it's been, a little while that we've been seeing kind of this ramp up. And when I started teaching about birth, this is a topic that came up. And then I had friends who started encapsulating placentas. And what was interesting is what we were seeing just as childbirth educators and doulas. And now, a lot of my friends are midwives, and what they see, although we haven't had necessarily evidence-based sources to back these things up, other than women saying, I feel like I have more breast milk. I didn't get the baby blues this time. I didn't have other mood disorders this time. I had more energy to take care of my baby. But these were all things that, is it a placebo effect? But we were seeing it over and over and over again. So I love that you are on the other end of this, where you're like, there's actually science behind this now. And so I want to dive a little bit deeper into that today. Before we jump straight there, though, will you, for moms that are listening, because some of our listeners here are first-time moms, they don't know much of anything about the placenta. Can you just break it down? What is the placenta? What does it do? What's its purpose?
So the placenta is the organ that enables a pregnancy and birth. So after fertilization, it's the organ that develops right in the uterus, attached through the umbilical cord to the unborn. And it has so many functions. It's liver, it's lung, it's kidney, it's endocrine organ, all at a time. So it can breathe for the unborn. It can supply it with nutrients. It is metabolistic organ, and it also has an important endocrine and immunologic function. And it's just wonderful.
Yeah. Yes. Okay, that's perfect. So that's kind of just the like basis of you grow an entire organ when you are pregnant so that your baby survives, right? You cannot have a baby without this wonderful organ, and our bodies do it without us having to think about it, which is really incredible. And then let's kind of dive into where we are today. So I kind of talked about when we're talking about placenta encapsulation and kind of the research behind it. Here in the United States, there's a couple different ways that women like to consume their placenta should they choose to do that. And it can end up being frozen or brought home fresh. It can be dehydrated or steamed and then put into pills, like encapsulated form of eating it. Or women have eaten it completely raw, whether that's frozen or fresh, and they chop up little pieces of it and put it with their ground beef, or they make this placenta smoothie that everybody talks about. I would love to hear from you. What has your research shown? What have you found to work really well for women? And if you will, talk about kind of the science of what is happening behind it, what's working, what it does, and why.
Okay, so you started with the effects that women observe after placentophagy. And you mentioned that women observe enhanced breast milk and stable mood, subjectively more energy. And this is also published by Judy Seelander et al. So they did a survey from women consuming their placenta, and they also reported these kind of benefits. And we had a midwife in Germany for her thesis also doing a survey, and also German mothers, they observe the same effects. If you look at the endocrine production of hormones by the placenta, it's just happening that the placenta produces exponentially hormones of pregnancy, such as progesterone, human placental lactogen, like ACTH or neurohormones, and I was trying to fit the hormones to the observed effects. And then we took the tissue from the placenta and we prepared it in the ways women prepared when they consume it. So we had samples that were just raw and homogenized tissue as for a smoothie. Then we also had the tissue dehydrated. And then we had the steamed dehydrated tissue, which is kind of similar to the so-called TCM capsules. And we compared the concentration of hormones that we could find in the tissue. And this was super interesting because, for example, estrogens are super sensitive to heat processing, and you will lose up to 99% if you steam them. And also if you dehydrate them at about 55 degrees Celsius. But interestingly, progesterone, which is also a steroid hormone, is not as sensitive to heat processing as estrogens. And in the dehydrated tissue, we still found measurable levels of progesterone. So to break it down, we analyzed 6 different hormones, which kind of have a function for lactation. We also looked at oxytocin, which can help the uterus to contract. So what's also happening postpartum if you want to enhance the involution of the uterus. And we analyzed these hormones, and then we looked at the different preparation styles and wanted to find out, are they still measurable in, for example, TCM placenta capsules?
And so what did you find?
Yeah, interestingly, all hormones are sensitive to heat processing, and the highest concentrations we found is in raw tissue because proteins, they denaturize if you heat them. And this is why German midwives started now to use the placenta and then take a little frozen piece and chop it into really small chunks and put these chunks into pills. And then they get their raw placenta pills from the freezer, and they will ingest the kind of raw tissue because they don't want the loss of hormone concentration due to dehydration or heat processing. But on the other hand, women also report these benefits after consuming TCM capsules. So we can't say if it is really only the hormone content that is causing the effects, but maybe we have also other information in the tissue, like epigenetic information. Maybe it's also protein, maybe it's minerals. We looked at potentially toxic trace elements. We looked at iron, but from iron, you can say it's not enough to treat postpartum anemia. So, always in science, you ask a question, you do your research, you get an answer, but you can't explain the whole thing from this one puzzle.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Did you see anything different? So when you freeze it, the hormones are not as sensitive to being cold, is what it sounds like, as they were to when they were heated. So those hormones remain intact so that when mom consumes that placenta, she's receiving the full benefits.
Yeah, but so this is about the hormones. But if you look at the tissue and the bacteria on the placenta tissue, then it's different because we rinsed the placentas with clear water and we erased microorganisms on placenta surface. But if you then dehydrate it or steam it first and then dehydrate it, then also microorganisms are gone. And I don't know if you read the CDC publication on group B strep on placenta tissue. So if you want to avoid bacterial contamination, then it's the best option to steam it and then dehydrate it. So it depends on, do you want to have a safe method in terms of microorganisms, or do you want to have a method that doesn't influence the hormone concentration that much?
So is this where it just becomes kind of mom's decision here? Are you saying that one is better than the other, or just that you have different options?
I think, in my opinion, every mother should decide, first of all, do I want to use my placenta or not? I don't think that it's necessary for everyone, but maybe if a mother is at risk for postpartum depression because she had an earlier postpartum depression or she had severe PMS, then she should consider placenta. Then the preparation method, the type of ingestion, smoothie or capsules, it's also a thing that the mother can decide, and she will observe the effects. So we have a midwife survey, not published yet, but we asked midwives in Germany to report the benefits that they observe when women consume the placenta. And in Germany, we also have the option to send a piece of placenta off to pharmacies, and they will prepare homeopathic remedies from your own placenta. And also women who are, because of ethical reasons, or maybe they are vegetarian, or they just don't want to use their placenta, like the tissue, they use the globules, the homeopathic tinctures, and they also observe benefits. So I cannot recommend it as a doctor because you don't know what is contained in the placenta because it's individual. So we analyzed the hormones from spontaneous birth, where you have a situation of stress that you would not have if you have a planned C-section with an epidural. Then you have not this labor stress. So maybe the levels of natural oxytocin, of neurohormones like CRH and ACTH are not that extraordinary high with a planned C-section. So I cannot give an advice about dosage. Every mother has to find her own dosage. I cannot say, as a doctor, you have to do this. I just want to give the best data available, and then every mother can have her decision based on published data.
Yeah, it's interesting. For those of you who are listening and not watching, when she was talking about safety, she kind of air quoted like that this could be, quote unquote, not as safe or quote unquote safer. So I thought that was interesting. That's why I asked those questions. It's neat to me because here again in the United States, and probably there too, right? Or just along midwives in general, something that we see done. For example, you mentioned oxytocin is one of the things that's in the placenta. Something that we see done postpartum as a natural option if mom is bleeding heavily or we're dealing with postpartum hemorrhage. Something that I've seen at home midwives do, I've actually seen it done in the hospital too, is to take a small chunk of the placenta, rinse it off really good, and put it in mom's cheek. The idea being that the oxytocin reaches her brain rather quickly, and that signals more contractions, that clamping down of the uterus, so we see less bleeding. And I've seen that happen in real time from this. So can you talk a little bit about that? As you're preparing to welcome your baby this season, you might be wondering, will I feel confident enough? What if things don't go how I imagined? I hear this all the time. That's why inside My Essential Birth, we focus on helping you feel prepared, in control, and supported, not guessing your way through labor. And right now through April 7th, it's $100 off, just $197, plus bonuses for labor and postpartum. This is how thousands of women have had births they truly love. Grab it before the promo ends. Head to myessentialbirth.com/get started and get started today.
Yeah, so we have the same observations done by midwives here in Germany as well. And, we had also synthetic oxytocin as a nasal spray. And there are publications where you could see that sniffing neuropeptides is an effective method to really fast bring information into your brains because you have microcellular clefts, and oxytocin is very small. It's like a 9 amino acids long protein hormone, so very small. And the idea or the hypothesis is that it can really fast influence your brains and function as a contracting hormone to the uterus, so it will stop bleeding. And if you look into the animal kingdom, there are just a couple of species that not engage in placentophagy, but all mammals will do so. And I talked to Daniel Banishek a lot about this. So he is the anthropologist that was doing amazing research at the Las Vegas University, and he said there must be something very specific about placentophagy, because he was looking at animals. If you, for example, have mice and you, after birth, you give them beef or other things or placenta, they will always always eat the placenta. So there must be something very specific about it. And maybe it's also getting back nutrients, enhance, or that you have less postpartum bleeding through the oxytocin. These are all hypotheses, but I think you should think about them.
Mm-hmm.
And he was also talking about the theory of predators avoiding predators. So you have monkeys giving birth in trees, and they will climb down to get the placenta. And one hypothesis is that they will avoid predators. But Daniel Benishek, he was saying that even lions in the savannah, they would consume their placenta with no predator at all.
Right.
So I also think that there must be something very special about the tissue and the concentration of nutrients or hormones or substances in the tissue. And we just made one little step to understand it, but it will take years and years. And just one other thing to mention, because now we have the science and we can analyze hormones, but even 1917 and 1918, when it was still unknown that hormones exist, there were studies done with placenta remedies, and placenta was given to women, and the researchers found out that the concentration of breast milk changed. And in the other study, they also found out that only breastfed newborns, they were growing faster if the mothers consumed placenta compared to the non-placentophagic group. So hundreds of years ago,
wow,
even without knowing that there are hormones contained in the tissue, they observed the effects. And I did literature research, and I found a lot of traditional information about this remedy that was used, for example, from wet nurses. They had sheep placenta and prepared from sheep placenta remedies that they was using, because I was wondering, how could you ever nurse a child for 4 or 5 years? And this is how they use placenta preparations.
That's so neat. I love, the more you learn, the more interesting it becomes. Okay, you kind of mentioned, well, first of all, what are TCM capsules, so that we can get that? I probably should have asked that a while back. What are TCM capsules?
So according to Chinese Materia Medica, you can first steam the placenta tissue, and then you add herbs like ginger to the water. And they also have an antibacterial or antiviral function. And then you dehydrate the tissue. But if you go back to the original literature, you also find placenta remedies in Chinese Materia Medica that are only dehydrated. But often they mixed placenta with other herbs to make a complex remedy. But in the Chinese literature, for example, in the Ben Sao Gang Mu, which is an encyclopedia, it says that placenta is outstanding and you cannot compare it to any herbs or minerals. And they say that even the stupid will feel the effects. And it was used in ancient times also to not only to treat lactation insufficiency in women, but also for impotency in men. Because the idea is to replenish the qi of the kidney, which is the cause for infertility if you have a lack of qi energy. So if you look into the literature, it's amazing. And these Chinese reports, they are 100 years old. And even if they didn't have the labs or the analysis, they would see the effects.
Yeah, that is interesting. Today, I feel like sometimes it's so easy to, and especially in the medical community, to treat everything sterilely or without compassion. Even parts of our body, like that organ was used to grow our baby, and it's just discarded as medical waste. And I get that maybe you don't need it afterwards. Maybe you don't need to do anything. But even before there were hospitals and all this, and we weren't eating our placentas, or maybe some women were, we were burying it. We were doing some kind of something that kind of gave it a little bit of reverence, or there's just a certain reverence that I think is missing maybe when we go more medicalized on some of these things, not having respect for all the things that our body does and just the heat of the moment and all the busyness of everything. So I think that's interesting. The other thing that you talked about though that I wanted to go back to was the CDC talking about the GBS issue. So for women that are listening, what happened, it was here in the United States a couple of years back, there was a report of a mom who her baby got a really bad GBS infection. She was also consuming her placenta at that time. And so they tested what she was consuming and found GBS in the placenta and immediately made the correlation that because the mom was taking the placenta, the baby did not test positive for GPS at birth. But because the mom was taking these placenta pills, they believe that she gave that baby GBS through her breast milk. So that's the study that you were talking about. Is that correct?
Yeah. So it was an early onset sepsis in the newborn, and they analyzed the breast milk, and the breast milk from the mother was free from GBS. And then the newborn was treated at NICU with antibiotics, and then had a late onset sepsis. And they found the same strain of group B strep in the bloods of the newborn as in the placenta capsules. And so the discussion was that through consuming the capsule, the mother infected the newborn. And we discussed this case also with a microbiologist at our university hospital. And what we didn't understand is how the acidic environment of the stomach should not erase this group B strep, because this is what usually happens. Also, if you see in the literature, group B strep is very acidic sensitive. And then this woman should have a bacteremia, like a high concentration of E. coli in her bloods to get it into breast milk. And then also it is in the stomach of the newborn. So we couldn't follow the hypothesis well. This is why we did another clinical group B strep trial, and we tried to analyze tissue, or we did analyze tissue, and we tried to find out what happens from B strep positive moms. It's too complicated to explain it here in a podcast. It's all written in the GBS chapter of the book. But we thought that the mother had a kind of colonization with E. coli, with GBS, and through close contact, kissing, and so on, she might gave the group B strep to the newborn. But it's a single case. But with this single case, the story tells, not the data. You can really make people afraid of consuming placenta. And if people are afraid, they shouldn't do it. And there are a lot of publications advising against placentophagy, but you never know who was writing the papers, from which background they come, and still science is an ongoing discussion. But it's also harder if you have an unconventional view to publish your data, to find funding for your research. So it's not always that objective as you wish science should be. And still, we should not ignore the risks. And there are many, many things we cannot answer yet, but we still should also not ignore the health of the mother and her wish. And we have a kind of over-regulation. So if you gave birth, you can take your baby, but no, not your placenta, because this is biohazard. But as you mentioned, the rituals, right. I think it's super necessary to have a ritual to bury the placenta, to say goodbye to this organ who has treated the baby like with an all-inclusive hotel for 40 weeks. And I collected field reports from women who had they planned a vaginal birth and ended up with C-section, and everything was pretty not as they wanted to. But with a ceremony and a burial of the placenta, they could leave all this emotional and maybe tragic situations behind. I think it's super important, and I want that the woman can decide if she wants to bury her placenta, if she wants to find her own ritual, if she wants to throw the placenta in the bin, if she wants to donate it for research. I don't care. I just think the mother is the one who should decide.
Yeah. Well, and listening to what you've said, I feel like the recommendation, if moms are interested at all, if nothing else, take it home, freeze it, and then decide. At least you'll have the option, should you decide to do something with it, whether that's consume it, bury it, get rid of it, whatever. At least you'll have the option. And then it'll be intact with some of those hormones that we talked about, should they decide to eat it raw or whatever they decide to do that way, or, steam it, fry it, or whatever.
Yeah, because this is also what I would think. Before birth, in every birth preparation course, you should at least hear about the option. And I heard that many women suffer from lactation difficulties. For example, when the kids are growing with 3 months, they are growing and they are really thirsty, and you have not so many good conventional options to enhance milk supply. Or I also hear that, for example, if you end up with a C-section and you have a newborn and it's hard to get the lactation started, then the mothers are sometimes really worried that they only have the bottle feed version and they really want to breastfeed. And so I think it's a really so super powerful organ. Just take your placenta if you can, freeze it, and if you need it, she's there, and if not, then bury it or whatever. But you don't know, even if you plan your birth as carefully as you want to, you never know how it ends up, and maybe you need it. And in Germany it's called mother's cake, so it's the from the word, it's meant to be for the mom.
Yeah. Yeah. That's neat. Okay. So actually I have a question then. Should moms, is there any concern with the placenta and what they've consumed during pregnancy, vaccines that they've had, medication from what you've seen? It's interesting about GBS because moms can test positive during pregnancy and be negative at birth and vice versa. So it's just kind of one of those funky things when we get into GBS. Is there any testing that should be done before consuming it? Are there things is there anyone that shouldn't consume their placenta, or any kind of like big, heavy things that you're like, if this happened or you took this, think twice?
Mm-hmm. So in Germany, if you get pregnant, you have a couple of tests for viral infections such as HIV or CMV virus infections, hepatitis. So you get screened a lot. And if you don't have any of these infections or malaria, then I would think if the mother wants to, that's fine. About medication, you always have the half-life time of medication. And if you have taken paracetamol because of headache in the third trimester, I would not expect to have much of this medication still contained in placenta tissue. But, you cannot tell what's inside. But if you go to the supermarket and you get the chicken from the farm, and like not from the farm, but from the factory, you don't know what's inside of the meat, how many antibiotic treatments they had, like mental stress they had. This is also not a good quality of meat or information. And if you think of a mother that is avoiding alcohol, not drinking during pregnancy, not smoking during pregnancy, not taking drugs, like not smoking marijuana, not being on heavy medications, then I would think this is okay. But to answer these questions, you would expect more basic research. But then we are back at the beginning where I said this is not the main topic. Like I experienced male professors who said, why should we look at these topics? I experienced professors who said, it's super interesting. It doesn't sound scientific, but we can analyze the tissue. So you have this ambivalence, but it's hard to get funds and research. And there's so many questions, and you can only answer a couple of them from the data. And this is also from the definition of evidence-based medicine, what you can expect. You can't answer every single individual question with evidence-based medicine, because you should take the best available data. And then you also have your personal experience as a practitioner. And then you have also third part of evidence-based medicine, the wish of the patient. And taken together, this three columns of evidence-based medicine, then you can find a decision for the woman.
Yeah, I'm glad that you explained that because I think a lot of what we do as women, especially when we're preparing for giving birth and making these decisions, there's not going to be any one right answer that fits every single mom. And that's where it really is on us to trust ourselves and our intuition to get the knowledge and make informed decisions about our own care as we move throughout that process. And so I think, there's some basic things like you're like, okay, if you have, bloodborne pathogens, if you have HIV or these other things, like, yes, know that that's not, you shouldn't be doing that. Otherwise, here's a lot of information and you get to decide. And I think that's where we give the power back to mom. It is, I think it's better that way instead of telling women this is what you should do and how you should do it. It's really our opportunity to make those decisions for ourselves.
And I don't want to convince anyone to consume the placenta. I just want the next generation to be growing like as good as possible. I want that moms are in their power and that they can grow and feed their baby as they want to. And if placenta can help, then I'm happy. But I'm not a big pharma company that wants to sell any product. I'm not doing a big press campaigns for this. I'm just looking at mothers, and I collected field reports from mothers who consumed their placenta. And I was so happy reading that they had this remedy helping them through the really exhausted first year. And this what makes me happy. And also this is what drives my research. I can't earn money from this. I will not provide any vaccination or medication. And I'm also not giving them allopregnanolol or brexanolol to treat their postpartum depression. I can just tell, maybe you can benefit from the hormones in your placenta tissue, but it's about the woman and about their health. And sometimes I'm sad because so much research is carried out by companies, or they don't care about the woman. They just care about selling their products, and this is sometimes making me sad.
This is the story of my life. This is why I continue to do what I'm doing right now. And I'm so grateful that I have women like you that get to be a part of it, because that's my soapbox. Women deserve to know. And it has been so frustrating to run into some of those roadblocks where you feel like this, because it's not serving the bottom line or their, whatever, like a benefit to them, they're not willing to give the information or look into it or dive a little deeper or make sure that mom knows all of her options. And I think that's really unfair when you're in a position of authority over that mom, taking care of her in some way. I think that is not appropriate at all. And so I love conversations like this. Will you tell us really quick, you have something that you talk about called hormone withdrawal, kind of like this has to do with the postpartum part of things. Will you discuss that real quick?
Yeah. So there are some scientists that discuss mood symptoms in the postpartum. They are because of the hormone withdrawal after placenta birth. So over 40 weeks, the placenta is producing hormones, and also exponentially. And from one day to the other, this extra enormously high concentrations, they will drop. And women who are sensitive to these hormone changes, you sometimes have women with severe PMS, or you have women that had previous postpartum depression, they would experience not only baby blues, but also postpartum depression. Baby blues will go away after a couple of days, but postpartum depression is a severe disease and you have to treat it. And we now know that the hormone withdrawal can be a cause. And this is why now companies, they would provide metabolites of progesterone that you get, for example, as an IV, brexanolone, zuranolone, to treat this hormone depletion.
That's super interesting. Yeah, because we were just kind of talking and a second ago, and it has me so interested. I don't know why this isn't studied postpartum. I actually think, sorry, my brain is all over the place. I actually think what I wish they would do with every single woman postpartum is to do a blood workup. Like within the first week, just see. I feel like there's so many things that you can see early on in the way of hormones or other even nutrient deficiencies that are happening. And if we could catch those early, or in this case, utilize the placenta to help with some of those things, I think that could be such a great benefit to women.
Yeah, but the thing is, hormone therapy is often made with not bioidentical hormones. And all these rumors about getting cancer from hormone replacement therapy and so on. But this was not, now we know that there's a difference between synthetic and bioidentical hormones. And we also know that's a huge difference from oxytocin, synthetic, but also the body's own oxytocin, which is the real hormone of bonding. And some people, they hypothesize that from the synthetic oxytocin, you also get the feeling of not real bonding, but this is just hypothesis. And still, if you have this drop in hormone concentrations, why not avoid this huge drop through bioidentical hormones that were produced by your body? But I have to mention, we don't have clinical studies that were measuring hormones before and after birth and then after placentophagy. We have a pilot trial that was done by Daniel Benishek and his team, and they were giving women the TCM preparations of placenta hormones, and then they were looking at salivary hormone levels, and they didn't find significant changes. They only found little changes, but not overall. And this was the study where we said, we could show that the hormone concentrations after steaming and dehydration, they were dropping in the placenta tissue. So there are still so many questions that we can't answer yet, but we have to hear what the women experience, and they are the ones who can tell us how they feel and how they are.
Before we jump off here, I do want people, so you wrote a book, Placenta Power. And as I was researching, it sounds like because you are, you've done all the science work on it, that you had all of this incredible scientific information, and women kept coming to you asking questions about the placenta. And you were like, here's the scientific information. And they were like, we don't understand it. Help me understand it. Is that correct? And that's kind of where the book came from?
Yeah, this is right. Because in Germany, you don't read the medical English publications. And I wanted to send these publications to my friends, and they were like, Sophia, what shall we do with it? And then, with my colleague from the Placenta Lab, Jana Pastuszek, I wrote the book. She was helping me with a couple of chapters. She is more the biologic person. I'm more the medical person. And I'm super happy that every woman can now sit back and read the book. And I hope it's written in a way that everyone can understand. Even if fathers or grandmothers are interested, I got so much nice feedback, even from grandmothers who said, I wish I had known this when I was pregnant with my first child. And I was like, I'm trying to share this knowledge.
Yes, I love that so much. For those who are here and listening, where can they find you? Where can they connect with you? And where can they get the book?
So the book, I think you can find every link on my website. So my website is sophia-johnson.de. And there you can find Placenta Power. There you can find my work. There you can also find the scientific publications. There are links there. You can access them, and also links to the book. And sometimes when I'm not busy with work or kids, I'm doing also Instagram. And I think I'm called Dr. Sophia K. Johnson.
Don't worry. For those of you who are listening, it'll be in the show notes, and we'll shoot it out in the email. You'll have all the links for you, so you don't have to memorize any of that. But I wanted them to know kind of where they can find you. So website, Instagram, she has a book. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Yes. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. If you loved what you heard today, the very best way to support this podcast and help other moms to find it is to leave a quick review. I read one at the beginning of the episodes, and I would love for yours to be next. And if you're ready for even more pregnancy, birth, and postpartum goodness, come join me in the My Essential Birth course at myessentialbirth.com, where I will hold your hand and walk you through pregnancy and birth step by step, so you're totally prepared for a birth you'll love. See you next week.